Well, good morning to you once again. Thank you so much for being with us on Morning at NTV. The 23rd of April 2024 is before us. And of course, we're having a crucial conversation, one that has stalled the economy a little bit backwards. On top of IFRIS, then you bring in the challenges that we're having in road transport. What more is yet to come? We'll wait to see by the sun and the moon. But in our Kickstarter this morning, we're going to be focusing on factors affecting the lifespan of paved roads. We'll also be looking into the cost-effective solutions for road maintenance, as well as road maintenance and highway designs here in Uganda. In present-day time, focusing on present and future events that are speculated to occur. I am Priscilla, Regina, Naluga, and you are most welcome. Now, of course, according to the Uganda National Roads Authority, UNRA, a total of 4,793 kilometers of new paved or tarmac roads have been constructed in the past 30 years. When you look at a total of 1,924 kilometers of existing dilapidated paved roads reconstructed, it gives you a picture of the deficit there. However, despite these efforts, the country still struggles with the maintenance of the road network. UNRA does estimate that paved roads last on average for 15 years. Is that the case for the designs that are out today with the new roads that are coming up? Well, that question will be answered by the spokesperson himself. Notably, as heavy rains do persist, many roads have become unmotorable and unsafe for both the motorist as well as the pedestrian. And then in many parts of the country, roads are cluttered with potholes. But Nakampala, you get this one, and have been completely washed away, leading to mobility challenges. But also a major challenge has risen in regards to the state of road network here in Uganda, as the Chengera-Masaka highway caved in on it, a section there, and has paralyzed car movement on that road. And some of us have been the direct victims of that, had to sleep on the road because of that occurrence. Well, we're being joined by Mr. Charles Bakaki. He's the engineer, and he's here on behalf of the Uganda Engineers Registration Board. He's a member, and because of his expertise in highways and urban roads, he's the perfect person to help us paint the picture and understand where the challenges are, but also opportunities. We'll also later be joined by Allan Ssempebwa, who's the spokesperson with the UNRA, to speak into the state of Chengera right now and why we have reached here at this opportune juncture. But now introducing Mr. Charles Bakaki to give us his salutations, and then we get into the deep of the conversations. Good morning to you, Engineer.
Morning, Priscilla, and thank you for having me on. And good morning, viewers.
Well, I would say it's a pleasure to have you, but it's a tough one to have you, but you're the right person to speak to. And so I would like us to start by first painting for our audience a picture. When we talk about road infrastructure and road networking in Uganda, from an engineer's perspective, how do you actually come up with the road infrastructure? What are the elements that have to be considered in coming up with infrastructure by design into development?
Thank you, Priscilla. And I think this is very important because Uganda, as a landlocked country, you'll find that at least 90% of all travel demands are by road. And so the road infrastructure plays a pivotal role in the livelihood and the development of Uganda. Ideally, the development of the road infrastructure should be planned, and it's not only the development but also the maintenance, because a lot of money goes into the road infrastructure industry, and it's very important that this infrastructure is protected, and the protection of that infrastructure is through appropriate maintenance. So while the government should focus through UNRA in developing this infrastructure, it's also very important that this infrastructure is appropriately maintained so that you can preserve that investment that we are putting as taxpayers.
Okay. Now, in that regard, when you look at, for example, focusing on design, road design, there's a notion that you have to speculate what the future events could be regarding that road design, incorporate them in the design in order to then address those issues when they come. The road in advance actually does the addressing. So when we look at the case of Masaka-Chengera Road in regards to the futuristic events that were speculated at the time of initial construction, what were those?
In design, we'll look at the traffic that is going to use the road. And that traffic is projected for the period that road is going to be in existence. And then, of course, you also look at the flood events. What water are you expecting, or storms are you expecting to be impacting that particular road? And this, among other factors, informs the sort of drainage facilities that you're going to provide, informs the kind of pavement structure that you are going to adopt, and other aspects of the road itself. Now, it's always the intention of every designer to accurately predict these aspects or parameters that are going to be used for the design purposes. And there are procedures that have been developed over time for you to be able to predict some of these parameters. But I have to acknowledge it's almost impossible to predict Mother Nature. And somehow, somewhere, something could happen that was beyond what you predicted. So we cannot fault the designers all the time. We have seen this even in the West, where cities are flooding. Recently, I think we saw pictures in Dubai, where the city was actually drowning and under floods. So these things can happen. The most important thing is that every time an event like this happens, we need to learn from it and fine-tune our prediction models to know how best we can be more accurate in predicting what is going to happen in the future, so that these issues are factored into our designs. Okay.
Speaking of the prediction models, predictions were made at the point of construction of the Masaka-Chengera area code. But I know that there's a lot of unexpected changes that have happened within that area, or territory for that matter. And could you speak into some of those and how they have led us to having issues where roads are actually caving in at some points of the road?
Now, without the benefit of knowing exactly what has happened at that section that caved in, I can only speculate. It is possible that maybe the stormwater couldn't find the right crossing point through the drainage structures that are provided on the road and somehow washed away the road. That is possible. I haven't looked at the details. It is possible that maybe the structure that was installed has collapsed over time. Maybe it was old and somehow it was undermined and collapsed. So there could be a couple of things that happen. Now, what is important is that when this happens, the authorities that be need to get to the bottom of what has happened. If it turns out that the structure collapsed because maybe it was old and the trucks are heavy now running over the road, then it's likely that other structures on the same road are also old if they were installed around the same time. So then it requires that you look at the structural integrity of all these other structures that are still lying on that road section, so that we don't just go into firefighting, that every time it collapses, then you mobilize the teams and then you try to sort out that particular problem at that particular location. So those are some of the things that we need to do to try to mitigate against some of these events. It happens every time planes fall from the sky, but at the end of the day, there are investigations to find out why it happened, so that you can factor that into the design and adjustment in the planes that are having these problems. So that is really what matters.
So from your recommendation, where UNRA sits right now, it's under a lot of pressure. As Allan is joining us, he comes with a heavy court because he has to answer the case of the people. And so what would be your recommendation that such an incident has happened, as UNRA with its engineering department, how then should they be handling this on a larger scale, so that they're not dealing with just a tiny element of the problem and yet creating another one in the long run?
Yes. This is actually the gist of the whole thing. Now, when something like this happens, it's important for UNRA to conduct an exhaustive investigation, to understand why this particular incident happened, so that they can then plan to address any possible recurrence of this kind of incident. Because the caving in of a road section has a significant impact on the economy. We have now trucks, they have to take longer distances, and other vehicles and so on, and this results in additional costs. So it's important that you get to the bottom of this. It's not about rushing in and trying to fix this particular spot. This is important. You have to fix this now so that the traffic can resume. But then another process has to start so that you look at the cause of this and see what can be done to address this before we get another incident on the same section.
Okay. Also, this puts or mounts some pressure on the other road infrastructure that is being used as alternative routes for this traffic. Now, of course, those road designs are not designed in such a way to manage this kind of traffic right now. And so it begs the question, and those other routes also going to be dilapidated if UNRA does not react and act in the quickest possible ways. But Allan Ssempebwa, spokesperson for UNRA, joins us to give us ground understanding. I know that you have not slept in the last 48 hours because of the pressure that is on the back of UNRA to fix the damage that is on the Masaka-Chengera road. What is the status of that damage? Let's first get that understanding from you.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. As I speak now, from the look of things, we should be opening that section, the Chengera-Budo section, today. Most likely not later than midday today. Yeah, because the teams did not go to sleep. They were working day and the night, and all through the night until this morning. From what I've just seen, we're opening today. And I'll be headed to site immediately after here. Okay.
Yes. From the details that have come out through the engineer's report, what are the root causes of this damage?
This is majorly attributed to the extreme weather changes. You know, climate is closing up on us, but we're saying, well, for every door closed, we can still push. It's not necessarily locked. Yeah, but it's a extreme weather patterns. If you look around the region, the flooding in the Nairobi city just last Saturday, the havoc it caused in the city when I think about 2 or 3 rivers burst their banks. The damage was huge. That's just in the region, but even elsewhere on the globe. So this is what we're facing. The call is on us to ensure that we indeed respond. I think you had part of the discussion, respond in the short term, but also have strategies for long-term interventions. You know, building climate change resilient infrastructure is the call on us now.
Okay, Engineer Bakaki here was of the view that yes, while you do have, of course, to do short-term repairs to manage traffic and return things to normality, at the end of the day, you also do have a great challenge to go back and do a whole roads networking diagnostics on the Masaka-Chengera road, because there's this coming in, there's been the Katonga incident, and what other hotspots could presently be at risk as we speak this morning, because this is a road that connects trade, you know, between west of Uganda to central Uganda, between Congo, Rwanda, and other countries bringing in their business or taking business out of Uganda. And so it begs the question of an exhaustive investigation into other parts of the road. So from where you're seated, what are those other expected hotspots that UNRA could speculate and needs to realign their budgets accordingly so that they can avoid catastrophes such as was?
Yes, we are largely at risk, I should say. The damage is not only affecting the areas, for example, that are already damaged, but we're all at risk because the global warming impacts actually affect all of us at large. So we are largely at risk. You know, when you look at flood-prone areas of the east, south, and southwest, Even actually, there would be hot areas like Karamoja actually, when they experience flooding, the roads are overtopped. So, and like I said, ours is to ensure that we are on standby, first with short-term interventions, and this is where we have across the network maintenance stations, and theirs is to look at this network, ensure that they intervene should there be such occurrences on our network. But we have a diagnostic, as you call it, unit at the Directorate of Network Planning and Engineering that is actually charged with looking at these roads, designing them, first of all studying the patterns of the terrain, the areas they traverse, and building or designing the required standards. And we have plenty of them in our cupboard. And whenever government has resources, you've seen us roll out one project after another, one project after another. I can tell you for Masaka Highway, for example, we had the solution, but limited by financing. But we had a design solution to first of all elevate the profile of that section, put a bridge, permanent bridge, that will withstand the floodplain. And this is what we're actually doing. We're going to build a longer, bigger, and permanent bridge crossing at Katonga, Kalanda, the swamp area, and the Rwera area as well. And we've done this for several other roads. And this is what we're doing for every new project we're doing. We're elevating the profile of the road, building bridges that should be able to withstand these floods. So you've seen on the Kampala-Entebbe Expressway, the bridges on the road. So it's an example I could probably share with you. That strikes home first. But we have other projects. Rukonjiri Kanungu, we put such bridges, and we put other bridges elsewhere to try and again respond to possible adverse effects that the weather changes could have on our road infrastructure. Okay.
What's the lifespan of the Masaka-Chengera road?
You mean the entire highway?
Yeah, the entire highway.
That road was built in about 2011, 2012. So it has served its time, considering the nature of traffic using the road, and that it also traverses a water basin area. So, and this is why it is prone to flooding. You know, when we had last year's flooding at Katonga, and it's also a low-lying area, a road. So time has come for now for us to elevate the profile of this road to meet the weather effects.
Okay, you have mentioned bridging as one of those ways of upgrading the profiles of the roads. What other elements can be used to upgrade the profile of the roads?
Well, majorly bridging, because bridging elevates the road. But also, as we start a new project, we upgrade generally the profile. You know, from a normal maram, so to speak, in late language, or gravel condition, to another standard. So we call it upgrading from a minimal standard to an elevated standard. What we're going to do for a new road like Nakauka, Natete, again to strike home, we're going to elevate the profile of that road from where you actually see it, because we're going to now put up more layers. The road will be raised. And therefore, we also hope by raising the profile of the road and the respective bridges we may put in some areas or box culverts, we'll be able to have an infrastructure that withstand weather shocks.
All right. Truth be told, I don't want to be in Ssempebwa's shoes one day, because he has mentioned profiling, and UNRA's heart is in the right place, but I know it comes with budgets.
Absolutely.
And so on another day we'll be having this conversation with you, and you'll be talking about resource limitation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's a reality we'll be talking to later on. Coming back to Engineer Bakaki here, with what Mr. Ssempebwa has submitted so far, in your analysis, of course, he has talked to us about the span of the road right now. It's overdue. And from an engineering perspective, what would be then the next level to ensure that there's rehabilitation to the road? Because if it has surpassed its span, then we can't say maintenance, can we?
Certainly, if it was built in around 2011, then it's probably about 13 years old. The usual design lives for such roads is either 15 or 20 years. Certainly, the kind of failures that we are having may not necessarily be a result of the road sort of running out its design life. We are looking at major storm events that are compromising the integrity of the road. And this is not necessarily an issue of the life that the road has been there. I think with, first of all, an increased population, with people building up more of the areas, we having rain water unable to actually penetrate into the ground like it used to, because places have been paved, you have roofs, and so on. So the amount of water that is running off the surfaces has increased over time, and this has also been excavated by the climate change patterns. And so we are having a higher runoff on the surface, and possibly, most likely, at the time they designed these roads, they didn't anticipate this level of stormwater that would actually be, accessing the road. Now, and that is understandable. What is important is that with the meager resources that are coming to UNRA, and I understand this, there is a need to prioritize some of these roads, because this is a major highway. It is our main gateway to the west and to all those other neighboring countries that we access through the west. So instead of getting some of the resources into building up other roads that may not be as central as this, it is important that we maintain this corridor, because this is a major corridor. And so I think Brian will look at this later, because Allan, I mean, there is nothing we can do around this, because we cannot cut off the west and all that. So it's important that this intervention comes in, even with the limited resources we have. It's now a question of prioritizing where to put the limited resources. Let's
talk about engineering integration with the different parties and entities to this conversation that we're having. You do have UNRA that has to make the road. You do have the authorities, the city authorities, that also have to give permits to those that are putting up structures, by engineering. For example, UNRA put up the Masaka Chengira Road, anticipating that, of course, it will attract development. How much development is speculative, but we can see the much development. For example, Chengira it could actually earn a city status in the next few years with this rapid speed of growth that it's having economically. The stretch of schools, it's like those you can do back-to-back or door-to-door school visits, because there are now so many schools that have come onto that road simply because of the road infrastructure development. And so it begs the question that while the road is there, the engineering or designers for example, the education infrastructures that have to come through, are they in consideration of the fact that the nature of the road that is present at that opportune time is definitely going to be affected by how they're putting up the structures, where they're putting up the infrastructures that are going to lead to the flooding that is going to affect UNRA's work?
Thank you, Priscilla. I think what really happens is that you cannot restrict development which is actually being triggered by the infrastructure that the government is putting up. What you can do is to make sure that in developing this infrastructure, in doing the planning and the design, you also take into account the development that is likely to trigger, so that the effects of that development can be factored into the design. It's not the other way around, that you will tell people that, no, don't roof your house, otherwise you're going to discharge a lot of water into our roads. You can't do that. It's not tenable. So really it comes back to the how far you need to go in planning and designing the infrastructure as a government.
Mr. Ssempebwa, in regards to that integration, putting into account all the other factors that will yield because of the development of road infrastructure networking, is there a way that you are able to have integrated conversations as far as socioeconomic development is concerned, so that your road can live out its lifespan in regardless of the development that it attracts?
I think he said it quite well when he said you can't restrict investment or development And as roads authorities or agencies with a mandate to look after this infrastructure must ensure that we, first of all, are coordinated, collaborating, deep stakeholder engagement, to ensure that when we put up a road, the authorities actually can protect it. For example, I've had a social media campaign, little as it may seem, trying to tell communities around our roads to ensure they do not litter or irresponsibly litter rubbish along our road reserves, because this eventually gets into the road drainage system and clogging them. And ultimately, when we have this water flow, we'll find the drainage is already blocked. And as a resultant effect will be overtopping the road, flooding it, and further damaging the road infrastructure. So I think the discussion has to be intense. That when we build, we must protect, we must maintain. It goes beyond the institution of government, but also the local authorities to help us on this mandate.
Okay, Engineer Bakaki, moving on to the element of quality, because some scholars are of the view that perhaps it comes down to quality of the works that are designed, quality of design, quality of engineers that are deployed to do the work that UNRA has to do. So when we speak of quality, what's your analysis of the quality, especially from the engineering perspective, that is adopted into road infrastructure development?
I always want to be factual. I think UNRA is doing their best, but we also appreciate that there have been instances where there have been questions about quality, there have been investigations about quality, and so on and so forth. Now, this quality, people tend to look at it only of the works that have been constructed, because that is what people understand. But these works are designed. So when you're looking at the quality, you should be looking at the quality of the designs, and then you look at the implementation of those designs. I think UNRA has got systems in place to make sure that designs are implemented as they are during the implementation period. There have been lapses, I think. UNRA acknowledges this. I think you have investigated some of them. There is a need to tighten this. And by the way, when you're looking at quality, we cannot run away from the issue again of corruption. So you find that some infrastructure is coming up, but somehow there are shady dealings in the decisions that have been taken during the implementation of these projects. So there is a need to ensure that the people implementing these projects have integrity. And what they tell you that they are doing is exactly what they are doing. So again, this is a broader discussion that extends way beyond UNRA, but it affects the national infrastructure, and we cannot overlook it. So I think that is what I have to say.
Well, Mr. Ssempebwa, this is an element that you have to work with. You cannot have the expertise that you're having on the road, on the caved-in road area right now, of course, is definitely supported by engineering. Let's talk about some of those challenges that you're facing, especially from the engineering end of things.
I think mostly the expectations that we have when we get on ground, when you're starting on a road, we have lots of stakeholders playing a part in, first of all, the maintenance, rehabilitation, or even an upgrading projects. So for upgrading projects, for example, you have to buy land, because as you know, in the country, land belongs to the people. So you have to buy land, extensive land, before you actually build your project. So what this means is you should have the money. And a number of times, the money doesn't come in as quickly as we may wish to have it. So this, first of all, brings about delays in our road implementation programs, because we have to delay a project that we should have delivered in 3 years, we end up delivering in 4 years. So the aspect of land disputes, bickering among families, We end up in court with court disputes. So this delays implementation of our road project program. So I think that's one of actually our major challenges in implementation of our roads. For contractor compliance, we have stringent safeguards, I should say, on safety, environment and social safeguards, where we ensure that there is total compliance from these contractors. And should they not comply, there are sanctions to that. In fact, we have on several times questioned works of our contractors. We've written warning letters. In other areas, we've actually had to terminate contracts. So we have avenues to address challenges that we may, find in the implementation of our programs.
Okay.
But we're assisted by other agencies, you, the public as well. We're open. We're open to scrutiny, accountability. So we present our annual reports to the public, present it on our websites, but we're open. Whistleblower reports, if I tell you the numerous reports we have from the public, the IGG, so we're open, the Auditor General, yes.
Okay, all right. As the Engineers Registration Board, where does this leave you in ensuring that, as far as supporting development in the country is concerned, you are putting out the quality that is required for the likes of UNRA to be able to do their work effectively and efficiently? Let's talk about licensing and exactly how often you do checks on the people that are registered under the board to be able to deliver accordingly.
The mandate of the board is to regulate engineering practice in the country. And that looks at the people that are being licensed to practice. The assessment of those that are being licensed is based on their demonstration of their technical capability and expertise to undertake what they want to undertake. And ERB is doing the best to do that, and it has churned out, nice people that are qualified to do this. When it comes to taking the right decision, it takes more than you understanding the technical aspects of the decision you are taking. It goes to your integrity, your morals. Now, the employers who employ these people should be able to dig deeper into the morals of the people they employ.
Absolutely.
And the ERB on the other side, that doesn't deal with the morals. It deals with the technical aspects of somebody's qualification to practice. So I think we recognize this is a major issue, but employers should be able to do that, do a background check on people, and make sure that you have other mechanisms of following up the decisions that people are making. And when at any one time you suspect that a decision may be shady, then you need to take measures irrespective of whether the person involved is a relative or not, or a colleague. Because already corruption is a cancer, and it destroys so many things in our lives. And this is something that all of us should fight with a concerted effort, because it's taking away services from people in the medical sector, it's taking away services from our children in the education system. So it's not just affecting the infrastructure, which, by the way, affects many aspects of our lives.
Okay, all right. I know that Allan would like to respond to this because they've thrown the ball back to you.
Yep.
Yes, as the registration board for engineering, they do their due diligence, but at the end of the day, you also have your own due diligence to do in regards to the contracts that you award.
Yeah, he's actually not fallen far from what actually happens while they do their part, registration, setting standards of compliance and competences. We do the day-to-day checking with our people and teams, and we have actually avenues in place. We have, for example, I should tell you, we have a contract management system where there is a supervision from the director, the contract manager, from the respective engineers, down to the graduate trainees. So that, first of all, that composition, first of all, should be able to check the implementation of projects to ensure compliance to standards, to integrity standards, but also should there be a lack of, you know, or some pitfalls here and there, we have an internal investigation and compliance mechanism, which we then undertake. It's actually headed by an office of police internally, but also have internal audit department that has technical auditors that together, you know, look at the matter, investigate it, and produce reports, either to sanction as may be required. We do take these sanctions, yes.
Okay, all right. Engineer Bakaki, I know at the end of the day, we have to look at the futuristic events. Climate change is not going to go away for both of your duties to be dispersed effectively. And so what are the resolutions around that from the engineering perspective as we come to a conclusion?
Actually, as we speak, designs that are being prepared now, in the estimation of storms, or flaws that affect actually our infrastructure, you factor in the climate change factor, which essentially increases the flow that you are looking at because of your assumption that there is a climate change, and this is resulting into increased rainfall. Which again is increasing the runoff that is going into our drainage systems. So it's already in place, and I think Allan knows it. The designs that are being prepared now actually take into account that.
Okay, Allan, in conclusion, of course, we would like to know what are the upgrades and the updates as far as that road is concerned, because some of us have to go and check on our gardens this weekend without worrying that I am going to sleep on the road. I slept on the road.
Yes, first of all, I want to take to this moment to apologize to our road users that had to endure, you know, the misery of going through the alternative routes. Some were in not a good condition. We had some that were passable, but because of the overwhelming volumes of traffic, they were still packed, and therefore we had a traffic chaos as we did. And of course, a challenge on us to work very, very quickly around the clock to ensure restoration. And this we're doing. I want to give you the assurance that today we're opening this section to traffic, and we're grateful to God. The weather has been good, so we've been able to implement this without any major hiccups. All right, that's on a short-term basis. What's the long-term plan? Long-term, it just did share here that we certainly are aware of the intervention at this section. And the entire highway, actually, we know it's a low-lying road, and what we've only done, for example, by trying to elevate the profile at Katonga, Rera, and Kalanda is an attempt to address this challenge. And this we shall do. Of course, the limitation of financing, but we have the designs and solutions ready. Okay. All right. Well, thank you such, Mr. Ssempebwa. Thank you so much, Engineer Bakaki. And you've heard it from the horse's mouth. They are going to do their level best. Of course, they have committed that today the road will be usable as has been previously, and in the long term, there's also plans to make sure that there's upgrades and new profiling of that road to meet the new weather changes that we're seeing.